to the first of several season previews we're going to have here at the Bounce Off podcast. We're going to start with the Buzzsaw and their 2023 season preview and projections. We're just going to do these in alphabetical order. I'm really excited to start talking about the 2023 season now that the rosters are out on the SlamBallLeague.com website. It gives an opportunity to sort of look at what these players have been able to do in other sports and sort of assess what that's going to mean for their time in SlamBall. There's obviously going to be some blind spots because we as an audience haven't been able to see too much of their time in and around the SlamBall court. But with a league that's touted as having tried out 1,000 players, to get down to this final set, which was supposed to be 64, by the looks of things is 56 players, to get from thousands or 1,000 to 56, these people have got to have some sort of aptitude on the SlamBall court and around the tramps underneath each basket. This team is coached by Hernando Planells Jr. We're going to talk about him and his assistant coach later on. We'll go through the roster in draft order, address the coaching staff, look at the projected starting four for this squad, as well as any strengths and weaknesses that the Buzzsaws might have in 2023. You see how I just, over the word Buzzsaws? You'll probably hear me referring to them as The Buzz quite a lot, because I do like that as a nickname, The Buzz. And if anyone from the SlamBall League is listening, I think for next season, give them a logo that's like a wasp with a saw for a stinger, and then that's the Buzzsaws. I think that'd be quite. But I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy that wants to talk about SlamBall with y'all. So, the Buzz were one of only two teams in the 2023 draft to fill out their roster in the first four picks. Traditionally, a SlamBall roster will have one handler who's in charge of organising the offense, two gunners who are in charge of scoring, and a stopper who's your main defensive threat. The Buzz took a stopper, handler, and then two gunners with their first four picks, which you'd think would be like a smart strategy. Fill out your roster with the best players available in those positions, but only one other team did this, and that's the Mob. We'll talk about them in a later episode. That being said, 3 out of their 7 players are handlers. Now, that might be fine depending on how they want to play, because while I said that traditionally teams will do one handler, two gunners, and a stopper, in the original season of SlamBall, I was about to say handball there, in the original season of SlamBall, it wasn't uncommon for a team to go with 2 handlers, 1 gunner, and 1 stopper. That really just depends on the physicality of your handlers, I think, and how much outside shooting you want to rely on, which might be really important in SlamBall in 2023. I think that given that's how they drafted, Coach Planells and his team are going to go with a handler, 2 gunners, and 1 stopper formation. But I'm going to make a slight case later on as to why I think in 2023 they should maybe be going with 2 handlers, a gunner, and a stopper instead. But we will get to that. Their first round pick, they actually were picking second overall. We don't know with the 2023 SlamBall draft if it was traditional style or if it was snake style, which you would assume snake style is what they'd go with in a first season to try and even out the teams. But we don't know what they did. We only know who the first 3 draft picks were and who the 7th overall draft pick was. And then other than that, some of the player bios have it sprinkled in like if they were picked in the 7th round. But we know that the Buzz picked second overall. And with the second overall pick, they took Tyquan Scott, 27 years old from Long Beach, New York. And I like this pick at number 2. I think without comparing him to other players in the league, because I haven't had an opportunity to go through every single team to do this preview, without comparing him to all the other players in the league, just looking at his game, I think second overall pick is really nice for this guy. Again, we don't know how it translates to a SlamBall court, but if you're getting picked second overall after the training camp, that implies that what I'm seeing here from his history in basketball, both professionally and collegiately, that's going to translate well to the SlamBall court, and they've seen that progression, they've seen that development, and they think it's something that's going to work. He's 6'7", 245 pounds, and he's playing at the stopper position, which traditionally has been one of the most significant positions within SlamBall. If you have a stopper who can protect the rim, and also occasionally be helpful on the offensive end. That's a very valuable asset. If you think of Dion Mays, who was the first ever MVP of a SlamBall final at the stopper position, and he wasn't even the first overall pick that season, but Wilson of the Bouncers, who Coach Planells coached, that was the first overall pick. So stoppers are a valuable asset within SlamBall. He is a large man, so don't expect him to do... I mean, he could run to the rim, and we'll talk in a little bit about why I think that would be smart, but I think primarily his focus is going to be just to be plopped right underneath the basket and stop any shots from coming his way. But I think he could be an offensive threat. His last professional outing in basketball was in Indonesia in 2020, where he played 9 games. He averaged 8 points per game on pretty much entirely 2-point shots. But he was also nominated as a All-Star Dunk Contest finalist, which as soon as you hear someone has like an aptitude for dunking and they're in SlamBall, that sounds pretty awesome. So being a finalist in a slam dunk contest, even overseas, I'm excited to see what he can do on a SlamBall court and around the rim on the offensive side. His season prior to Indonesia, he was in Nicaragua, and he averaged 18 points per game, a block, a steal, and 2 assists. Now, 2 assists doesn't sound like a huge amount, but when you're comparing it to a lot of the athletes that are involved in SlamBall this season, 2 assists seemed like quite a lot. On this team, that's the highest assist per game I've seen from any of the former basketball players that are playing for the Buzz. So I think that's a pretty decent number, especially when you're comparing it to handlers, and he's doing better than handlers at distributing. I think that having a stopper that can pass opens up the game quite a lot if you don't want to just have him sat under the basket all the time waiting for the transition, for him to be on transition defense. If you want him to come up and play sort of a help position around the top of the 3-point line, having someone that can distribute the ball and sort of act as a larger handler really like gives you some space and allows for the 3 smaller players to all act as gunners and aim for the hoop. That could be quite nice, especially if the other members of the team also have a good 3-point shot. Another thing that spreads the floor from the stopper position, if you have someone that can do it, is 3-point shooting. And while Tyquan Scott isn't like lights out 3-point shooting, in his years at Herkimer University, if I say any of this wrong, I'm Scottish, leave it, it's fine. You can't say Bannockburn, it's fine. If you want to look at his time at Herkimer, he averaged 29% from 3, scoring 17.5 points per game while he was at the collegiate level. So not only does he have a decent for this sport assist level, but he's also got a pretty decent like 3-point percentage for a big guy who hasn't been coached to shoot threes a lot, by the looks of things. Maybe I'm wrong about that. These are both really important assets if you want to spread the floor that way. But it does leave your team susceptible to transition offense opportunities if your stopper's too far up on the court. If he's having to go back, one of the big things I've learned researching more about SlamBall is the whole defenders can't jump forwards to try and make a block sort of thing. So if you're coming back defensively as a stopper, you have to go from first tramp to second tramp so that you can make a vertical jump off the second tramp, the one that's underneath the hoop. If you're an offensive player, you can just go from the first tramp you see and float to the basket because you don't need to worry about going vertically. So if your stopper's too far up the court too much of the time, it really destroys your team's defending potential and results in a lot of fast break points for the other team. So while I like that he can shoot threes, while I like that Scott can get some assists and spread the floor, I'm not married to the idea that that's how he has to play, because I think that might be, depending on his speed, depending on his ability to run, it might be more detrimental to the team than just having him be underneath the basket. As I mentioned, he was in a slam dunk contest, but he also has like, with his size and with the fact that he predominantly shot 2-pointers when he was in Indonesia, you assume that this guy's just going to truck to the basket, which is going to be really useful in SlamBall if he's just going to go straight there and just go at it. He's got some highlights out there as well, including one from his time in, I believe it was high school, where he's got chin up over the rim on a like follow-up, which another big thing for SlamBall this season, or just realistically, generally, the ability to follow the ball to the hoop, whether it's your shot or someone else's, and make a play is really important. Again, as stopper, you don't want him to be that close to the basket that he needs to make a follow-up. But if he's shown an aptitude for that, then cool. Let him go. And the last thing I noticed about Tyquan Scott, second overall pick, 27, Long Beach, New York, 6'7", 245 pounds and a stopper, is he's got a little bit of finesse around the basket. Nothing major, but he's got a little bit of finesse, which he's a big guy. He's not the biggest guy in the stopper position in the league. And having a little bit of finesse means that you've got some wiggle room around those bigger stoppers, that you can go left, you can go right, you can go up even and make a play. Even if it's not a dunk, getting a finger roll layup, getting 2 points rather than getting blocked is very valuable. That's Tyquan Scott. That's the second overall pick. That's who I project to be the starting stopper for the Buzz. Their second round pick is one of my major concerns for this team. It's not what I'm putting as one of their biggest weaknesses. Again, we'll get to sort of a 3 positives, 3 negatives later. But Michael Kolawole, again, if I've pronounced that wrong, apologies. 25 from Rowlett, Texas. He's 6'5", 200 pounds. He's playing as a gunner. I don't understand why this guy was taken in the second round, looking at his history outside of SlamBall. Again, with all of these players, as I take a sip of my drink real quick, with all of these players, their skill set that they've shown in SlamBall training camp, in training for this sport, might far and exceed anything you see in their prior seasons, collegiately, professionally, in whichever sport they chose to play. And for Michael Kolawole, I really hope that's the case if he's been picked second for this team, if he's been a second round pick for the Buzz. He last played professional basketball in the Basketball Africa League, which is an NBA affiliate league for the Kawara Falcons. He played 5 games, and in his 13 minutes of action per game, he was averaging 3 points per game. But as a guard, as a shooting guard, he was averaging 11% from the 3-point line. 11%. Maybe that's just not his game, but at that position in basketball, you'd expect a slightly better percentage, especially when that's not an outlier, because that sounds really bad, but he's never shot more than 25% from 3. With like looking at his time in college and then other pro leagues, I've never seen a stat where it's higher than 25%. Which is okay, but not at that position that he played in basketball in the modern era. You'd want it to be a little bit better. He's never averaged 2 assists per game. Again, if you're a shooting guard, that's not necessarily your responsibility, but you'd kind of like to see that. Always under 2 assists per game. What I think is the case, though, is that the biggest thing you see looking at Michael Kolawole's highlight packages is finesse around the rim. Probably the best out of any of the players on the Buzz, if I'm being honest. He has aptitude for finishing around bigger defenders, sometimes making it harder for himself than he needs to, but when you've got the height advantage from the tramps in SlamBall, that might serve him well. He's got a slightly herky-jerky dribbling style, which sounds like an insult, but if you watch Season 1 of SlamBall from 2002, it's just how everyone played. Everyone that played SlamBall was a little bit herky-jerky. I think that his value is something that we need to see play out to understand why he was taken in the second round. I can imagine that he's good at finishing around the rim. He's quite a long guy in terms of limbs, so I can imagine that he got a lot of dunks and layups off. And again, you don't necessarily need to shoot the 3 in SlamBall. Dunks worth 3 points. A 3-point shot is worth 3 points. If he can make a lot of dunks as a gunner, that's his job. He doesn't need to be good at shooting 3s. I just like the floor spread aspect of someone that's able to shoot 3s. I want players to be more rounded. But in SlamBall, I suppose if you're just really adept at making dunks, there's no need to have another facet to your game necessarily. And so we'll see how Kolawole does out on the court. Their third round pick is my favourite player on this team, I think. And I think Tyquan Scott can be an all-star in 2023, but I'm much more sure again, this is without being able to see what they're like on the SlamBall court, based on his career averages, I think that Jamaal Barnes Jr., third round pick out of Moreno Valley, California, 24 years old, 6'3", 180 pounds, and a handler, so their starting handler, I think that he has a potential to be an all-star and be a pretty decent all-star. He's young for the league at 24. It's sort of, the youngest player in the league is 22, but the majority of players are born in 99, making them 24, 23 years old. I say the majority. The league is split between guys in their 30s, or guys who are 30 years old, all the way down to 21. So 23, 24 is kind of young. Without knowing the injury history for a lot of the players in the SlamBall League, because it's not necessarily always out there unless they were big name stars. Without necessarily knowing their injury history, youth being on your side as a SlamBall player is really important. I mean, that's a stereotype of like higher leagues, but you've got to assume it's an advantage to be 24 in this league and be a little bit more athletically inclined than maybe even someone who's like 27, 20. That could be wrong. They tend to believe that professional basketball players bloom at 28, in a lot of sports, 28 to 33. You've got the mental aspect of the game, but you've also still got the athleticism, so maybe I'm talking about ours, but I like the age. During his time at Mount San Jacinto College, again, I've probably got that wrong, especially because I said Jacinto and there's no C at the end of that, Mount San Jacinto College, in 2019 to 2020, he led all of the Inland Empire Atlantic Conference in scoring with 18.8 points per game. That's decent, but you will see numbers like that from a couple of players in this league. And is it a well-rounded great game? Is it just 2-point shots? Jamaal Barnes Jr., at his time in college, was shooting 35% from three. The mythical number in the world of basketball is 40% from three. That's a good percentage. That's the best, that's all-star shooter equivalency. 35 is really good, especially looking at this league. I think 35 is going to be really, really good for SlamBall. Primarily, these are catch and shoot threes, which if you're playing at the handler position, you want the ball in your hand rather than to be catching it off a pass and shooting. But if in SlamBall, say he passes it to a gunner on the inside, gunner goes up for a shot attempt, the stopper comes at them a bit hard and they don't think they're going to get the dunk off. If they kick it back out to Jamaal Barnes at the top of the three, that's cash, that's swish, that's 3 points for the Buzz. I like that. I think that's a very valuable asset, especially in a 15-second shot clock, for him to just pass the ball back to him, and then for Barnes to get a 3-point shot off. I like that a lot. And it's not just that he was a 3-point shooter in college. If you look at his highlight tape from his time at Jacinto, he is rim-rattling dunks as well. A lot of them fast break, some of them in the lane, all of them with sort of a floating technique in the LeBron James style, arm cocked back, slamming it back. I like that he's shown both facets. 3-point shooting, dunking capabilities. This is good for a well-rounded SlamBall player. I like Jamaal Barnes Jr. Have I said it enough? In the open floor, he's got a good left-to-right crossover. Dribbling skills, especially in a sport where you can just get wiped out like SlamBall, aren't always important, but you'd rather have it than not. You'd rather have someone that can get around a defender than not, and I think Jamaal Barnes Jr. is a perfect example of can get around defenders with a couple of dribbles. I like that. The flaw I found in his game, translating from college to pros to SlamBall, the flaw I found, as I fix my shirt because I'm a fool, is that his favourite move inside is a Euro step, and I don't think you can get away with that in SlamBall. What I now challenge any SlamBall player to do, and I suppose you could do this as sort of a hop Euro step. For those that aren't basketball fans, a Euro step is when you've picked up the ball, you're allowed 2 steps for your layup, and you take those 2 steps to go 1 step to the right, and then take your whole body in a leaping motion to the left, or vice versa, to get around the defender and score, without taking any more than 2 steps. I don't know how that translates to SlamBall when the painted area, when the area right under the basket is all trampolines, but If you can work out a way to translate the Euro step to SlamBall, hats off to you, applause. I like it. I want to see it. I think you can do it. I've now come up in my head how you would do it. I just don't know if a person who loves a traditional Euro step is going to be able to take that leap. We will see. We will see. He is my favourite on this team to be successful at SlamBall because of three-point shooting, because he's good at dunking, because he's got a little bit of a dribbling ability, and because he's hopefully going to be decent at assists. Again, no one on this team's got assist numbers that wow me, but he should be decent. The one flaw is that 180 pounds is the handler. Again, ideally a handler's not going inside as much as your gunners, but you still want him to be able to go in and take contact and finish with dunks. And he seems a little bit light. He's probably given up 40 pounds to the majority of starting stoppers in the league. And I don't know how I feel about that. But we'll see. I think he's probably got speed and athleticism that's just, it doesn't matter. He'll go over them. It does not matter. But we'll find out. Jamaal Barnes Jr., my favourite to succeed at SlamBall on the Buzz. And their third round pick. I think if that's the quality of third round picks you're getting, that's really impressive for the league. Fourth round pick, Ralph Bellamy, 26 from St. Louis, Missouri, or St. Louis, however you want to say it. 6'4", 210 pounds, and a gunner. Now, his player profile on SlamBallLeague.com says he's going to do everything. He's a do-everything player on the SlamBall court, right? Wants to do everything. Probably wants to do a little bit of passing, a little bit of dunking, a little bit of stopping. Gunner, 6'4", 210 pounds. I think he could be a stopper. I think in a pinch, especially on this team that's only got two. I don't know how the rotations are going to work with three handlers, two gunners, and two stoppers again. I think there's an argument to be made that you start two handlers instead of two gunners. And we'll talk later about the problems I have with their backup stopper. If that's the case, then Ralph Bellamy is not a terrible third option at stopper. He's probably a really good option at gunner as well. But I like the fact that he wants to do everything on the SlamBall court. Not only that, his first professional contract was in the Dominican Republic for Del Patio in professional basketball. Prior to his time with the team, he was interviewed about the tryout process for entering the Dominican Republic and playing there. And he gave the impression in that interview that he's far more focused on winning games than personal accolades and accomplishments. And I like that. I like that from an athlete. As someone who, in his time playing basketball, probably never averaged more than 2 points per game. I was far more of a team player. I like that about you, Ralph Bellamy. He definitely does better than me in terms of scoring. He was averaging 33 minutes per game in 10 games with Del Patio and averaging 20 points per game and 8 rebounds. Rebounds, I don't know how rebounds are going to translate to SlamBall, but Dennis Rodman always talked about the ability to react to the ball coming off in different places. And so I think maybe there's something to be said there about someone who's good at rebounding, being able to read where the ball is going to go on a missed shot. So that might be good for Bellamy. But also the scoring. One of his highlight reels showed that he predominantly finishes layups. He's not dunking, and he's not shooting threes. He never took a three-point shot in his time at college. It's not his game. His college stats generally don't wow me, but if you look at that Del Patio number of 20 and 8, it's one of those things that sometimes players take a little time to mature. Not mentally mature, but to mature into their game and to have the skill set required to play professional basketball. So his numbers in college might not wow, they might not stun, but that progression over time is a really good sign. That progression going into SlamBall is probably a really good sign, and being taken in the fourth round, not bad from this guy. The finishing layups, you'll hear me say it over and over again, probably means that he's good at finishing dunks around the rim with the assistance of the trampolines. So I'm excited to see that. I want to see how he does in the game. That's Ralph Bellamy, 26, St. Louis, Missouri, 6'4", 210 pounds, a gunner, the fourth round pick from the Buzz, and that probably means that that's your starting five. Is Bellamy and Kolawole at gunner, with Jamaal Barnes Jr. as handler and your defensive stopper being Tyquan Scott. That's my, I'll officiate it in a second. That's my prediction. If you're taking those four with your first 4 round picks, you're probably starting all four. Here's where I'm going to make a counter argument and why I think that the Buzz could try and really focus on the 3-point revolution that basketball has seen in the 20 years since SlamBall began. Is their 5th round pick Devonte Pratt, 27 from Toledo, Ohio. He's 6'1", 205 pounds, and he's a handler. We're getting smaller and smaller as we go through the rounds, but he shot 30% from 3 if you combine his college and professional basketball numbers. I say professional. He played for the Toledo Glass City Wranglers in Ohio and averaged 16 points per game. He didn't do a huge amount when he left that league and went to play professionally in Canada. He didn't do a huge amount on the floor, but his 3-point percentage stayed roughly the same, 30%. So this is a career 30% or better 3-point shooter. I say that because college he was 29%, but then as he's gone professional, it's gone to 30-something. I think with this guy as your 5th round pick, as your second handler on the team that has 3, he was all-conference first team as a guard every year of his time in college, right? He's a good 3-point shooter. That time in Canada, by the way, he averaged 10 points per game in 5 games. I reckon you can get away, and maybe this is because I'm so down on Kolawole. I reckon you can get away with having Pratt and Barnes as your 2 starting handlers, having Ralph Bellamy as your gunner, and then Tyquan Scott as stopper, and play 2-1-1 instead of 1-2-1. Or rather, 1-2-1 instead of 1-1-2. That's probably how the formations work out in SlamBall. I think have Devonte Pratt and Jamaal Barnes Jr. be your starting handlers and shoot a bunch of threes. And if they're not making the threes, give it to Tyquan Scott. You've got 3 guys there that are averaging like 29%, 30% from 3 or better. The difficulty there is, again, it's a game about dunks, and dunks are worth the same as 3-point shots. And if you've got a bunch of guys taking threes, how do they get back on defense effectively and efficiently? Unlike how I'm speaking. I like that idea. I do. He's not just purely a 3-point shot guy, of course. And looking at his highlight tape, he likes a right-handed floater. He's not a dunk guy, but he's got decent handles. Again, trampolines are a big part of this sport if you didn't work that out already. And I think that having trampolines makes it much easier to dunk. But I think having a right-hand floater is exciting because my favourite shot in all of SlamBall, and this is going to sound ridiculous, is the mid-range. Because how do you take a shot? You're not going for a dunk. You're not taking a 3-point shot. Mid-range is from the trampolines, but you're not going for a layup or a dunk. You're shooting from a trampoline. The height disparity, the going up to come back down is crazy. So someone with a succinct and successful right-hand floater excites me. You excite me, Devonte Pratt. I want to see how that translates to a mid-range game in SlamBall. Maybe it won't. Maybe he's just going to do a bunch of dunks. So I like that. He's also the first player I've seen thus far in my research and on this team, in all honesty, to show assists in his highlight reel as a basketball player. Strong at drop-off passes and decent at long-range outlet passes and transition. That's coming from defense, going to offense, and having teammates running ahead of you. Really important in SlamBall. Because something you notice watching old game film is if the handler gets the ball inside their own tramp, and there's a gunner just going the other way, the quicker you get the ball to that gunner to go one-on-one with the stopper, give the stopper on the other team less time to react. Really valuable. Also really valuable is being able to go up for a dunk or go up for that mid-range and see a teammate who's around the basket or is coming in for the follow-up and giving them a nice pass for an alley-oop or whatever it might be. So I like Devonte Pratt. And again, it depends how good Jamaal Barnes Jr. is as a dunker and as an alternative gunner. Because you can have Pratt as your starting handler and then Jamaal Barnes sort of acts as a pseudo gunner alongside his teammates and Scott into the basket. I like it. He's got a decent handle as well. I really like him as, even if you don't want to start him, if Kolawole is so much better at the gunner position than I'm giving him credit for, because I haven't seen him play SlamBall yet. I really like Devonte Pratt as your 5th man coming off the bench. I think he probably makes your team better. spacing the floor with 3-point shooting, but also with great passing ability. 4th round pick, Devonte Pratt. Sorry, no, that was your 5th round pick. 5th round pick. I said 5th man. I'm an idiot. 5th man. Your 6th round pick for the Buzzsaw, the Buzz, Malik Abdul-Haqq. Again, if I've mispronounced that, apologies. 25 years old from Seattle, Washington. He is the backup stopper for the Buzz, and one of my major concerns about this team. He's 6'7", tall guy. He's 185 pounds, light compared to the handlers on this team. Where the next guy we're going to talk about, the last pick that they've got is Raymond Taylor, who's a 5'10" handler, weighs the same as Malik Abdul-Haqq. I am nervous about the size disparity here. I think he's skinny. He might just get rocked through by aggressive gunners on the other side. But let's talk about what he had before he came into the SlamBall League. So this guy is the first player that the Buzz have taken who's got a football background, American football background instead of basketball. He predominantly played wide receiver during his time at college. Adept at making catches in the air, getting 6'7", so you'd expect that. But the handling ability to make the catch is really, really good, especially on the offensive end. I think in SlamBall, it makes him adept at catching alley-oops coming off the tramp, getting the pass in the air and making a dunk off that play. Again, as your stopper, you don't really want him up that far, but if needs must, you know. Say they get, again, there's only 2 gunners on this team, and if you're playing a 2-gunner starting 4, say one of them gets injured, put Abdul-Haqq in there as an alternative. In his time, with the alley-oops, this is something I really want to say. If he is coming off the bench alongside Devonte Pratt above him in the draft order, I like that duo. I like outlet passes from Pratt to streaking Abdul-Haqq, not literally, of course, but streaking to the other rim, or just alley-oops inside, again, like looking for where the best place to put the ball is for Malik. I like that 2-man game coming off the bench. During his time at college, he was number 9 in the nation in his senior year for blocked kicks with 2, which isn't a huge number, but I'm coming from a totally different sport. It doesn't sound a lot to me, but it's number 9 in the whole country at making blocks. So his timing's good. And as a blocker, a blocker who can't go forwards has to go straight up and down with their attempt to make a block. As a stopper, I like the timing aspect. I like the length at 6'7", long arms. I think that's really good. When he was in high school, he played high school basketball, and he was his team's leading rebounder. I think that's a good stat to have. Again, blocking in football and rebounding in basketball are both very timing dependent, which is a thing I like from a stopper. The weight thing, yeah, he might get balled out the way, but he's played wide receiver. So an advantage he might have over other stoppers is getting back in transition defense. We'll see. The problem I do have, again, this is an arbitrary fact, this one, because there's trampolines around the hoop. But he was middle of the road coming out of high school in terms of like vertical leaping ability. Again, if you've got timing down and you can time your apex to be at the same as a descending player's height, especially in SlamBall where there's no goaltending inside the 3-point line, you can be above the rim and swat away any shot. So it doesn't really matter how high you can jump as long as you can time it right. I like that about Malik. I've got confidence about that. And their last pick for the Buzz is a 5'10", 185-pound handler in Raymond Taylor, 30 years old from Wichita, Kansas. The oldest player on this team. Not the oldest player in the league. There's a couple of 30-year-olds. I like that. He is a determined dude, and for being the shortest player on this team and one of the shorter players in the league, you need to be determined. He is a running back by trade in American football, so he's used to contact. He ran for 7 touchdowns and 269 yards during his time with the Duke City Gladiators of the Indoor Football League in 2021. Do you like how I messed it up and I just got way aggressive about the phrase indoor? Indoor. Also coming from Scotland, where our only pro basketball team is the Gladiators. I like that you played for the Duke City Gladiators. Thank you, Mr. Raymond Taylor. He's a determined dude because he was redshirting at Oklahoma State University. So he was a walk-on player. He wasn't picked to be in the team. He went and tried out and he got on the team. And by the end of his time at Oklahoma State University, he was a starting player. and one of the main focal points of their roster. I think over his time at college, he ran for over 550 yards, right? This dude is pint-sized power, and he's used to going into contact against bigger guys with your linebackers defensively in the NFL, in college football. He led his team, the Gladiators led the Indoor Football League in 2021 with the most points per game. So his scoring is like a big thing about that, I would assume. And I like that he's unafraid of contact despite being a smaller guy, because that's what he's used to playing football. And as a handler, I'm expecting him to facilitate the offense, but that might not be his game. I don't know if he played basketball prior to his time at Oklahoma State playing football, because some of these guys are multi-sport athletes in high school. So it might be that his translation to the SlamBall court is just rugged determination and an aggression going to the hoop, which I'm here for. I want to find 5'10" isn't short either, by the way. Just compared to this team and compared to the league, 5'10" is on the smaller side. I am excited for the day that SlamBall has our own Muggsy Bogues, our own Spud Webb, our own 5'4" little ball of aggression that just goes up for all the baskets. I really want that to happen. And I don't know, I want Raymond Taylor to be that guy to start off with. That is the roster for the Buzz going into the 2023 season. Their head coach is Hernando Planells Jr., goes by Coach H. He's one of 3 returning coaches from previous seasons of SlamBall. He was a semi-finalist as head coach of the Bouncers in 2002. Didn't qualify for the playoffs in either 2003, where he was head coach again, or 2008, where he was an assistant coach for the Bouncers. In the earlier seasons, and this is when, in season 1 when he got to the semi-finals, he was typed by the broadcast as like a fiery personality. There was a scene where he's like chucking stuff around the dressing room at halftime. And the way that the commentator described him is they said, he'll scream at you even when you're winning. Now, maybe that's because I don't deal well with that kind of coaching, but I'm thinking, pardon me, this might not be great for the team's success if he himself hasn't had success in SlamBall in previous seasons. He's a well-travelled coach. He spent time as an assistant coach for the Duke basketball women's team. He spent time as the head coach for the under-17s New Zealand national team. He has done like every level of basketball within the US as well as some internationally. So he's a qualified coach. The other thing that's happened since the first season of SlamBall is it seems as though his attitude has changed. Coach H has gone from being fiery, by all accounts, to now being a spokesperson for wellness and mental health, and for mindfulness is the specific phrase. So if you've got a guy who preaches the values and virtues of meditation to not only his players but his own children to exemplify and to excel at sports, then that might mean that his coaching style has changed a lot as well. And maybe that will bring Coach Planells and the Buzz, a lot of joy in the 2023 season for SlamBall. His assistant coach is Sandy Fletcher. He was a gunner on the Bouncers, or the Bounce, in 2008, which Planells Jr. was the assistant coach for. He came off the bench for every game, so he's not like a SlamBall icon, but traditionally in sports, you find that the role players, the guys who weren't the megastar of their team, are traditionally better at being coaches when it gets to that stage. Megastars struggle, while people who have had to get along with everyone and study the game to get better tend to do well in a coaching role. So shout out to Sandy Fletcher. Let's see what you can do. You have a cool name as well. All right, that's the draft picks. That's the 7-man roster for the Buzzsaw. That's their coach and assistant coach. Let's get into what I think the squad's going to look like in terms of starters, and then their weaknesses and strengths as a team, and then we'll get out of here and I'll tell you what to expect in the coming week for more content. So I think your starters are going to be Tyquan Scott at gunner, Jamaal Barnes Jr. at handler. Again, he's my favourite on this team to do well. I project that he'll be an all-star, if anyone from this team is. Ralph Bellamy at gunner, and then probably Michael Kolawole as your other gunner, because he was picked second overall. He was picked in the second round. I have already said I'm not sure about Kolawole. So I think Devonte Pratt is your fifth man off the bench, unless you're going with a two-handler 1-2-1 formation, in which case you put Devonte Pratt on and run two handlers, with Jamaal Barnes Jr. sort of being a pseudo-handler and acting more as a gunner that can also shoot threes. So I think they'll go with Tyquan Scott at the back, Jamaal Barnes Jr. as the handler, Ralph Bellamy and Michael Kolawole as gunners, but I wouldn't be surprised if they went with Pratt and Barnes at some point in the season. That's their starting four and their projected fifth man for me. We'll start with weaknesses for the team. Their biggest weaknesses that I'm concerned by, and then we'll go to strengths because we want to finish positively. So weaknesses, number one. I've already mentioned Michael Kolawole as your second round pick. It worries me. This is almost definitely because he's shown an aptitude at SlamBall, but I can't see that yet. So I just have to go off what I'm seeing from his time in college and professional basketball. His 3-point percentage is scary. And he's not someone that I'd want to trust with a ball in late game situations because of that. Because in SlamBall, despite dunks being worth the same as threes, threes are what have won games in late game situations in the past. A buzzer beater walk-off three has won a game more times than a buzzer beater dunk. It's just what I'm seeing watching previous seasons of the sport. So I don't like that as an option. Limited aggression offensively at the rim outside their two main stars. So in their first 5 picks, if you look at the highlight packages for their first 5 picks, only 2 of them are dunking from your 5. And again, that's maybe a height and athleticism issue, which a trampoline helps, right? But it doesn't fill me with confidence in their ability to do the rim. Counterpoint to this weakness is the finishing I've talked about, and most of their starting 4 are adept at finishing. So SlamBall, you go up with the assistance of the trampoline. It's up to you how you finish around the rim. So that's probably a good sign. But I'm a little bit nervous about there not being much dunking aggression outside of Tyquan Scott and Jamaal Barnes Jr. Another reason why those two are my favourites to do well in this sport. They also lack size. They've got 3 handlers ranging from 5'10" to 6'3". Not that big of a deal if you're aggressive enough with it and with trampolines to help. But it does make me nervous. Especially when your backup stopper is a light guy in Abdul-Haqq, 6'7", but a beanpole at 185 pounds, weighing the same as your 5'10" handler. He's got 12 inches on the guy. That's not how that maths works. Why am I struggling with that? He's got 9 inches. 9, damn it. He's got 9 inches on the guy and they weigh the same. Not full of confidence about that, right? It is. Especially now that I've noticed or pointed out the fact that taking 3 handlers means that the gunner position, which is the primary, multiple gunners on the floor at any one time, is weak for the Buzz. Again, I don't. Maybe Malik will be decent as a gunner, and that's the play, is to have him as a backup gunner instead of a backup stopper or switch position. We'll see, but those are my three concerns. Is Michael Kolawole is your second round pick, limited aggression in terms of going for dunks, and lacking in size as a team. That being said, there's 3 strengths. Now, first of all, is experience coaching. Hernando Planells Jr. is very experienced. He's got a 20-year career as a coach across every facet of basketball. So if there's a play that he can see from some other form of basketball, or even, as he jokingly said in some interviews, just YouTube videos, he'll run with it. He'll give it a go, and I like that. What they lack for in rim aggression, I think the finesse will make up for it. So I didn't even need to add that when I was talking about the weakness, because I already had it here. I think that what they lack for in aggression, they make up for with finesse around the rim. And lastly, a strong 3-point shooting percentage. Again, if you're taking Scott, and if you're taking Jamaal Barnes and Devonte Pratt in your starting 4, 30% averages across your 3 of your 4 starters from 3, that's really nice. That's really, really nice. It spreads the floor. And it sounds like, okay, you're taking 3s, but dunks worth the same as 3s. Yeah, because then eventually teams have to guard the 3 if you're making a bunch. And what happens when they start having to guard the 3? Open lanes to the hoop for dunks. And a 3 is worth more than 2 is a phrase in basketball. 3 is worth more than 2 in SlamBall. But if you can make them worry about the distance 3, that gives you more opportunities for the close-up 3. And that's just, that's nice. That's nice, especially having 3 out of 4 players that can shoot decently. That's what I'm ending on. Is 3-point shooting in a game all about dunking? But that's been our season preview for 2023 for the Buzz in the SlamBall Professional League, the SlamBall League, the SBL. I don't know. They need it in SlamBall. I'm excited to see what Coach Planells and the Buzz can do. I'm excited for more, for more coverage like this. As you'll know, because it's out already, this is coming out on the 30th of June, Friday the 30th of June. This coming Monday, we're going to have the season preview for the Griffins. On Wednesday, hopefully, we're going to have the season preview for the Lava. And on Friday, hopefully, we're going to have the season preview for the Mob. They will all follow a similar setup to this one. Hopefully a little bit shorter. We shall see. Make sure you're following me personally on social media. It's at Quantum Roberts. You can either do that on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. I say that because I will be posting reels and stuff. I've decided not to make an independent social media for Bounce Off, purely because it's so hard to maintain that sort of thing, and I'm already doing it for a couple other ventures as well. But follow Quantum Roberts on social media if you want to see updates about Bounce Off or updates about the SlamBall League. The betting odds just came out from one thing, and I put a little bit about that up on Twitter. Also pointing out some interesting things I've noticed about the roster pages. So it's been a good time. I'm enjoying covering this sport. Hopefully you're enjoying listening to it. I've been Sam Roberts. This has been Bounce Off, a SlamBall podcast. We'll see you next week. Let's get hyped. Who's rooting for the Buzz? Come on, Buzz. I need the SlamBall League to give me that new logo because I would wear that on a jersey. All right.